All right, now when it comes to archery, I'm going to talk about something that is not often talked about, okay? Index release versus a thumb button. Okay, this index release, this is the Spot Hog. It's called the Wise Guy. This is the UV button 2. Okay, now the example that I'm going to be showing you in this video is we're going to use my Matthews Lift X, and I'm going to use a couple arrows to demonstrate what you should do and what is the best release and how to actually look at this. So I have not seen a video done like this before, and the angle or the approach that I'm kind of going to be taking this video in or with is essentially looking at the biomechanics of the draw or the draw cycle instead of the gear. So most guys, when they get into archery, they're constantly looking at the gear. What's the best gear? What's going to help me shoot the best? Now, to make this make sense, the best gear for you is what the bow is sighted in and tuned to based on your biomechanics when you first set up the bow. So here's why I'm making this video. The example that I want to use is back in the day in high school when I ran track and when I ran cross country, okay? The example that I want to give you is this: a runner, okay? If you're a runner, very hard or almost impossible. It's very hard to change your gait. Your gait is your run cycle, okay, or how your foot moves, okay, because it's hard to change your biomechanics. It's hard to actually change the gait when you're running, okay, or your gait cycle, right? Your gait is your mechanics when you're running. So some people are more midfoot strikers when they run. Some people are more toe strikers, right? Some people are more heel strikers, okay? And then you have pronation too, right? How your ankle rolls as you're running. That's your biomechanics. You can do all of the improvement that you want to hopefully change or improve the smoothness of your gait when you're running, but it's very hard because the way your body moves is just how your body moves. Okay, that's your biomechanics, that's who you are. So I see a lot of guys, right? They're trying to constantly improve their draw cycle, or they're trying to change their draw cycle. But what they fail to understand, or what they fail to realize, is that your draw cycle, okay, your draw cycle, when you're pulling that bow back, how your shoulders align, how your body just moves in general is going to dictate and determine, okay, how the setup is and how it's looking. So you might be sitting here wondering, well, how does that actually relate to a thumb button or an index release? I'm going to explain. I have a little picture here for notes that I drew on my marker board, okay? And I wrote down, a runner can't change gait, okay? Or it's very hard for a runner to change gait, which means it's hard to change the biomechanics of your draw. So when guys are constantly wondering, do I use a thumb button or do I use an index release? You have to look at the biomechanics of both of them. Okay, so what that means is what you're going to notice is it comes down to what release did you use or are you using when you actually set up the bow? And that means when you tuned the bow and got the arrows flying perfect through paper, okay? And when you sighted in your bow, when you adjusted your sights so that way you're spot on with your accuracy, what type of release did you use? Let's actually get into it. When you look at the biomechanics and the draw cycle, okay, of an index release, let's actually look at this. One thing you're going to notice when you're pulling back, okay, the main point of leverage that's going to be used, or the main point of leverage that you're using to pull this bow back, okay, in this video tutorial or this example, this is more of common sense. Like, what I'm trying to help bow hunters or archers do is use common sense to get things dialed in for yourself, because so many guys are focused on the best gear, or they're focused on what is the best way to do something without actually looking at things objectively, okay, and with natural common sense of how your body's moving. So we just want to actually tap into our common sense here, okay? Let's look at all the leverage points, okay, or where the point of strength is coming from when you're pulling. So if you actually look at the form of an index release like this and your hand wraps like this, the main point of strength is going to be coming through the lat, okay, as you're pulling, and the main energy transfer you're going to notice is right here through or between the index finger and the thumb. because this is where you're gripping right here, right? This is where it is. So that's where the energy transfer is. And that arrow, okay, is essentially pulling straight across through the body. So if you actually look at how this looks, okay, when you actually get an arrow in here, I'll kind of step back so you can see what you're going to notice about the draw cycle and everything, okay, is you're going to notice that there's no twist oftentimes with a index, because the trigger is aligned perfectly with the arrow. So you're going to notice there's no D-loop twist. So let me actually show you what I'm talking about right here, okay? When you draw back, your main point of leverage or strength is coming between the index finger and the thumb, just like I told you, and you're gonna draw back, okay? And now here's what I want you to remember. When you get your anchor point set up right here with this knuckle of your thumb, and you put that most likely right underneath your chin, you notice when you wrap that finger around, okay, and you pull through the trigger, what you're going to notice is that the alignment, see, and the reason why I'm telling you this is because this right here is the release that I use when I sight it in and tune my bow. So that means there's no torque or rotation because there is no D-loop twist. Now, one thing that I notice since I set the bow up, since I got this bow tuned, and since I got this bow sighted in with this index release right here, that means that every single time, okay, that I use this thumb button, what you're going to notice about guys who use the thumb button is the D-loop twists a lot of times to get the anchor point better. So what you're going to notice if you watch guys shoot a thumb button is just to make the draw cycle feel good and just to get their anchor point aligned. What you're going to notice about almost every single dude when they draw using a thumb button is there is some D-loop twist. So actually watch the draw cycle right here. So you get that draw cycle, and then what you're going to notice is guys now twist like this, okay, and they want this pinky finger up typically. They want this pinky finger up so that way that knuckle, whether that be your index finger knuckle or the thumb, is aligned underneath the jaw right there or by the chin, and then they pull through. Well, when you pull through, okay, with a thumb button, the reason why it typically is different with accuracy, or the reason why guys are like, oh, you know, I can shoot really well with a thumb button, or I can't shoot very well with my index release, what they fail to realize is that when you switch releases, you are fundamentally changing the biomechanics of your draw, okay? So if I set up my bow with this index release right here, and you can see that this is the trigger, and you can see that this aligns perfectly straight on, okay, as you can see. And when there is a release, it's lined up perfectly horizontal with the rest right here. Bam, and it's released, okay? This was the release that I set up the bow with when it came to sighting in and tuning. As soon as I switch to a thumb button, and you look at the anchor point change, okay, to make the thumb button comfortable, as you draw back, you have a different point of leverage where your main strength is. So the main strength through the index release, like I told you, is right here between the index finger and the thumb, because that's where you're pulling, right here, right? When you pull with this, there's essentially even tension, okay, or even leverage across almost the entire hand. Now, it's a different point of pull, if you want to call it that. It's a different point of leverage through your draw cycle. And then here's the thing. When you're twisting your D-loop like that, you're going to be putting some torque, okay, throughout the bow that's going to affect your accuracy. That's what I've noticed. I shoot about 50 to 100 arrows a day, okay, just to really dial in my form and everything for myself. And you can see for yourself, in order for me to make this thumb button comfortable, okay, and in order to get my anchor point proper, you notice that I have to put a little bit of twist into that D-loop. And that little bit of twist right here, twist that D-loop up, pinky comes up, have a good anchor point, and you release. As you pull through, the biomechanics of that draw cycle and how it aims and how it holds is fundamentally different, because you have now changed the leverage points that you're pulling through, and on top of that, you've added some torque in the string because you're twisting this D loop. So what am I getting at? Okay, whenever anybody claims that they think they have more control with an index, or you think you have more control and better accuracy with a thumb button, what I think a lot of guys fail to realize is that that belief is only coming due to the fact that what you set the bow up with is going to determine a lot of the accuracy and how it feels in the first place. So if I set up my bow, okay, with a thumb button when it came to sighting in and tuning, and let's say I switched to an index release after a couple months just to test, okay, obviously, in my opinion or my belief, I'm going to feel like the thumb button gives me better control and more accuracy, because that's what's going to show and be apparent on my shots. But the failed belief is that it is not the actual release, it is the biomechanics of how you set the bow up in the first place. So obviously it will be best with the thumb button if that's what I set the bow up with. The main point of this video that I want you to remember is to stick to your equipment, okay? Good equipment a lot of times is good, but what makes it great when it comes to accuracy is sticking with it long enough to know how it feels for you. For me to get really comfortable and really accurate, where I'm shooting groups that look like this right here at 20 to 30 yards right now, as I just dial things in and I just make sure my form is really great. To get groups like that, it came from consistency. It came from hundreds or thousands of arrows. It came from shooting 50 to 100 arrows a day. It came from making sure that my draw cycle is consistent. It came from making sure that my anchor point is consistent, that I'm fully wrapping my thumb around this trigger, okay? So that way it doesn't look like I'm punching the trigger and my accuracy's off. All those little things matter. So the equipment that you use, okay, get good at it. The main point of this video is to stick to your equipment. So I set this bow up with an index release. And personally, I'm more accurate with it. And I'm more accurate with it because I can tell that when I twist that D loop with the thumb button, I can tell that I'm adding some torque to it. I can tell that it is affecting the flight of the arrow. When I pull back with this thing, since this is what I set it up to, okay, and I make sure my sights are completely level before I let go, and I really focus on pulling through that trigger smoothly, okay, my accuracy is spot on almost every single shot. And at distance, my groups are great as well. So point of the video, index versus thumb, it comes down to sticking to your equipment, staying true to your equipment, not changing things every 2 weeks or every 2 months just because you feel like it, using common sense to analyze your shot, not just the next dude who hunts, you know, just because he hunts, he tells you something and now you think it's true. Using your own common sense to recognize patterns. Okay, so I shoot better with this because this is what I set my bow up with. I would bet to say that if I set my bow up with this, my accuracy would be better with a thumb button. Food for thought, that's my advice on index versus thumb button. In the beginning, when you go to your pro shop, choose the release that feels best as you're testing the bow. Then from there, stick to that release or that type of release as you're tuning in the bow, or as you're tuning the bow and as you're sighting in the bow. And that right there will help you so much in your archery journey.